Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Able Voices podcast. I'm Dr. Rhoda Bernard, founding managing director of the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education, and I am proud to present this podcast featuring disabled artists and arts educators. We are inviting artists with disabilities to be guest hosts for the Able Voices podcast. Today's guest host is actress and playwright Grace Everett. Grace is a proud queer woman and an autistic self-advocate who is always happy to help educate others about accessibility and disability activism. She hopes to spread awareness and acceptance through performing and writing. Grace has been active in the arts since age 9. She started out with improv and later moved on to community theater. Some of the favorite musical theater roles that she has played include the title role in Carrie and Jo March in Little Women. Grace graduated high school at Ovation Academy of Performing Arts in McKinney, Texas, and now she is at DePaul University in Chicago, where she studies and trains as a member of one of the country's most selective undergraduate playwriting programs. Grace was a writer from the time she could read, but she started writing plays at age 15. Her first play, The Last Sunrise of August 1973, is award-winning, and several of her other plays have been performed across America by various youth theaters and professional companies.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Able Voices podcast. I am your guest host for these couple episodes, Grace Everett, and I am seriously so excited to introduce you to this next guest. This is Autumn Best. We actually had the chance to meet in person for the first time ever after being, I guess, online friends for a bit.
Yeah, it was really exciting.
It's so cool. Yeah. But yeah, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, name, pronouns if you want to share, like all that fun stuff. Talk a little bit about who you are as an artist.
Yeah. Thanks for the intro. My name is Autumn, and my pronouns are she, her. And I have been living in Chicago for the last 2 years, and I just moved to New York last week, which is very exciting. And I am an actress, singer, writer, and yeah, that's kind of the gist.
Nice. Well, okay, first of all, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Second of all, yeah, I would love to know a little bit more about just kind of your artistic journey, how you got started in the arts, like music, acting, writing, whatever you're up to, kind of how you got to where you are now.
Wow, yeah. What a broad, beautiful question. I basically started because my grandparents took me to a lot of concerts as a kid. There was this thing called like the Celebrity Concert Series, and it was like all of these retired and very old people went to these like silly touring concerts. And so there was one every single month, and it would be like orchestras or like dance groups and all that stuff. And I started going to them when I was like 4 years old. And yeah, basically from the very first concert I went to, it was actually a dance concert, and I was like, I'm gonna be a performer, like that's it. Yeah, so my grandparents really were like have been pretty much my biggest supporters throughout my entire career. But yeah, so I started to learn the violin when I was 4, actually, because I had been going to these concerts and going to these like symphonies, and I loved orchestra music. And so at 4 years old, I went to my parents and I was like, I am going to play the violin. And they were like, you only have one hand. What are you talking about? And so, but they were super supportive, and they were like, well, if you want to play the violin and you feel like you can do it, then we'll figure it out. So I got my first violin, and it was literally like, like less than a foot tall. It was teeny weeny bitty baby violin. It was probably like 5 inches tall. It's so small. And I started to learn to play the violin, and that was kind of a collaboration of working with a physical therapist and getting a brace made and finding a teacher that wanted to work with me and all that good stuff. And yes, I played the violin for a long time, and then I started getting involved in community theater from a really young age. And then I had my regional theater debut in Utah when I was, I think it was 14. And yeah, and then everything kind of just spiraled after that. So that's kind of like the beginning of it all, I guess.
Nice, nice. And I know there's obviously so much more to get into, but
Yeah.
like we'll get there. I don't want to overwhelm people right away.
Yeah.
But okay, so obviously, Able Voices podcast, you are a disabled artist. What can you talk a little bit about kind of your disability and how that affects you as a creator?
Yeah, of course. It's honestly something that brings me so much joy, and it's been a fight to get there. I spent my entire childhood kind of in the mindset of like, I'm not disabled. I am not different from anyone else. Like, I can do anything that anyone else can do. And that was kind of like a push from my parents and from like the adults around me of like, you're not disabled, you're not different. You have always figured everything out on your own, which is, there's pros and cons to having that kind of mindset, but it's not necessarily true, because I did have to really fight to learn how to do a lot of things on my own. And a lot of the times when you have that mindset, it can lead to feeling like it can make you feel like you can't ask for help and can't ask for accommodations. I didn't even really start like identifying with the disabled label until I was like a senior in high school. And I I started getting a lot of pushback from the adults in my life being like, you're not disabled, why would you call yourself that? And all this stuff. And it was really frustrating because I was like, you guys aren't seeing me. You guys aren't seeing all of me, because that is a huge part of me. And yeah, and then I was doing YouTube when I was in high school, and so I was talking a little bit about my disability on YouTube, which was really cool because I started to connect with other disabled artists and people with limb differences specifically from all around the world. And I still have some really good internet friends from my experience as a YouTuber. And that was really exciting because it was the first time that I started to see other people who were like me and had a limb difference specifically. So that was really, really cool. And it was a lot of like my really good friend, Henry, he is a model, and he came to me and he was like, hey, I've never shown my disability on the internet before. And because of your YouTube channel and because of your Instagram, like I'm going to like post with my hand in my pictures for the first time. And ever since, it's just that was like the most incredible moment of my entire life, honestly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and just to see him like just soar and be so successful. And yeah, so that was kind of like the early days of, I guess, like coming into my identity as a disabled artist and like connecting with other disabled artists for the first time. Yeah, and obviously there's a lot more to talk about from that.
So I know you mentioned regional theater production when you were like 14, 15.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know a little bit about that, but I am wondering just for the people, can you tell us a little bit about that, about your role in that and your experience?
Yeah, so I was in a regional production. Actually, my regional debut was in Shrek the Musical when I was 14. And then the next year, I took a bunch of friends and we went to Salt Lake because I'm from Utah, and went to this open call for a world premiere of a brand new musical that was coming to Utah. And the breakdown was really interesting because it was like, the character's name is Willow, and she was a bird who fell out of her nest as a baby and convinced herself that she didn't know how to fly. And so and all she wants to do is be able to get to the top of this mountain, but she can't fly. And so the play, well, the she's like the supporting character. The main character is like writing her story to cope with some other things in her life, but that character just like really spoke to me because it was just exciting to see something like that where it's like, okay, I this isn't necessarily written to be a disabled character, but I definitely connect with this storyline. And so yeah, I went up to Salt Lake, I auditioned for that, and that was kind of like my first big like professional theater opportunity. And it was directed by Jeff Whiting at the time, who owns Open Jar Studios in New York City. And so I ended up getting to go out for the reading and the workshop as well in New York, and kind of do that. And that's where I met like my manager and all that stuff. So that's kind of like how I came into like the professional industry, was yeah, doing that project. And I felt very supported by the cast at the time. Like they were very collaborative about the choreography and the blocking and everything like that. And they made me feel really comfortable with like asking questions and asking for accommodations. Specifically Jeff too, he is a really good director. And there was another disabled character in that cast too. His name was Seth, and so it was really cool to like work with another person who had a disability in the show too. Anyway, yeah, I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but that was kind of like my first introduction to professional world, which was really cool.
That's awesome. And I know you've got like so much more professional stuff under your belt. So, specifically for Willow, how was that? Because I know that you said the role is not written to be disabled, but then obviously you went on to play that role. So, was that role, did they kind of adapt that to be a disabled character once you had the role, or was that just something that you took on and did mentally?
Yeah, that's a great question. They actually did not know that I didn't have a hand when they cast me, which is kind of hilarious. I like went to dinner with the writer and the composer who were my really good friends, and they were just talking. They were like, "Yeah, we had no idea until you showed up at the reading." And we were like, "This is crazy." And so it definitely was something that like they didn't think about at first, but it was something that was on my mind. You know, I never like actually had a conversation with the writers about how it connected to disability, but it was just a part of my like own internal work for the character, and just really affected, I think, like how I performed throughout the show and like my own blocking that I was creating, because Jeff was a very collaborative director, so he let me have a lot of freedom to kind of tell the story how I wanted to. So yeah, it was kind of just a random coincidence that it worked out that way, and then it was just a lot of just mental, yeah.
That's so cool. This is a question that I like to ask really all
Hmm.
disabled actors, performers. Do you believe in your mind, in your table work, that all characters you play are inherently disabled, or is that something that can kind of change based on the character?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, I don't necessarily think that like disabled people should only go out for disabled roles, obviously. Um
Yes.
there's no world where that should be true. Any disabled person can play any type of character, and anyone who tells you otherwise doesn't know anything about theater or about acting, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But
Like we're playing pretend. What are you gonna do?
we're literally playing pretend. This day, like,
It's
and
not that deep.
and the truth is disabled people are all types of people. Disabled people do exist in every single, you know, every single facet of life, and every walk of life. So definitely, at least me as an artist, I go out for 100% more non-disabled roles than I do for disabled roles, because the truth of the matter is I have only gotten, I think, 3 self-tapes in my entire career for disabled roles.
And you booked one of them, right?
And I
Or
booked
one
one
or
of them.
more?
Yeah, which was
Nice.
so, I felt so blessed because I know so many people went out for that role. So it was definitely steep competition.
That's actually a really good segue.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that role, because like this is how I first found out about you,
Hmm. Yeah.
because I watched the show and I was like, oh my gosh, she's amazing.
It was so exciting. Yeah. Oh, thank you. It was so much fun. It was, I have a little bit of mixed feelings about how they handled my character. There was a lot of things that, got rewritten and kind of swept under the rug a little bit, which was frustrating. Um,
What show was this, by the way?
it
Just for
was
the
40,
people?
oh yeah, 4400 on the CW. It was a reboot of an old show from the early 2000s called The 4400. And it was about, well, our reboot was about marginalized people from different timelines time traveling to the present day, and then we developed superpowers. So it was very like sci-fi and fun. And yeah, so I had telekinesis, and my character was from the 70s. So it was so awesome. And in the breakdown, they originally said like, we are going to tailor the role to this actress, whoever we decide to cast, which was kind of the case with like all of the different characters in the show. All the characters like very heavily tailored for each of us, which was really cool. But there were pros and cons. I had an amazing experience working on that show. Every single person I met was so nice. Every single like cast member was so supportive. I still have friends from the show that I talk to literally every single day. And it was such I felt so lucky for that to be kind of my first on-screen experience. And as a disabled person, like as someone who was invited to the table because I was a disabled person, and it was very exciting. There were definitely some things that I wish could have gone differently. Like they never actually, because every single person kind of got like a feature episode, and my character's feature episode ended up not touching on my disability at all, which was very frustrating because every other character's backstory was kind of like centered around like their own personal marginalization and like their struggles in their timeline, but they didn't really talk about it at all and didn't talk to me about it at all. And it was very strange. But obviously, when you're in that mindset of just like going to work every day, it's like hard to, especially like as a brand new person in the industry, I didn't know like who to talk to. And I didn't feel like super connected to the writer's room because of it was COVID. So like we weren't really seeing people that often. So it was kind of like a frustrating situation where I was excited to be there and obviously excited to like have a feature episode on network television. Like that was so huge for me, but also kind of feeling like they were not wanting to engage with me as a disabled person when they had done that for everyone else. So it was an interesting situation, but
Yeah. That's a very interesting dichotomy there.
mm-hmm.
So I know you mentioned that you're a writer.
Yeah,
Just like because you mentioned, not feeling very connected to the writer's room. Well, easy solution to that: write your own
right
stuff.
around stuff, and that's
Um,
exactly what I'm doing. So
what are you working on right now? What's on the table?
yeah, right now, I'm actually writing a movie with my friend Eric, who had previously wrote for The Good Fight. And I don't want to say too much about it just yet, but it's basically a retelling of a fairy tale from the point of view of a disabled princess at the helm of the story. So it's very exciting. It's
Nice.
very like dark and kind of like action heavy. So
Nice.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This better get produced because I
I
want to
know.
watch it.
I hope it gets produced someday.
Or just like send it to me once it's done. Like I'll read it too.
Honestly, I literally will. I'm so excited about it. I it's been we've been writing it for over a year now. We've been working on it for so long. Yeah. So hopefully we can start pitching it soon and yeah, really get that going if we can, because it would be a huge project, but it would honestly be like a dream come true. It would be so cool to be able to work on something that I wrote, just because no one knows disabled stories as well as disabled people do. So I don't know why able-bodied people keep trying to write them, because they just
Yep.
like it's just never gonna work out. So
Like the disabled perspectives are just so valuable,
hmm
and it's so weird that oftentimes we just kind of get swept aside.
yeah, it's so
So
strange,
so weird.
especially like even in a space where you are expecting people to see your disability because that's what they hired you for, and then nothing.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. So New York, hello, moving locals. So now you're in a completely different industry. What brought you to New York? What's up? How's that going? How's your new place? Like all that.
Yeah, it's going great. It was a stressful move, as anyone who's moved states knows. Uh,
Yeah.
But it's been fun. I've been trying to get to New York for a couple of years. I actually got into NYU's Broadway studio program back in the day, back before I booked 4400. And I ended up not going because of the television show. And, but I've been trying to get to New York for years. And honestly, I've been taking classes and stuff outside of like my auditions. And so I'm still like learning and looking for ways to grow as an artist without school. But anyway, I'm getting off on a different tangent. But I moved to New York because my agents and my manager really wanted me to be out there. And I have a movie coming out this year. Well, I actually don't know what the release date is, but sometime in the near future. And so I just wanted to kind of shake it up and go somewhere where I could be making connections and hopefully be going to more in-person auditions as they start to come back. So yeah, it's been really, really exciting. And I actually just booked my first little project in New York. So that's very exciting.
Congratulations! Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
So, I know you got this movie coming up. Can you what can you tell us about that?
Man, I don't know. What can I say? I mean, what's publicly been said is it's about
Yeah.
a serial killer named Rodney Alcala, who was a real serial killer from the 70s. And it's kind of follows a couple different victims from his, from his, I don't even know how to say that.
Escapades.
Escapades, yeah. And so the movie stars Anna Kendrick and Daniel Zavato, who I look up to so much. They were so fantastic to work with. And
Anna also directed?
yeah, Anna directed it and starred in it. So that was really, really cool to be able
That's
to
awesome.
meet her. And she was so supportive. She actually, I might get teary eyed if I start talking about this, but she was so supportive. She found me on the first day of set and kind of was like, "Can we talk?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And she was like, "I just want to talk about your disability, and this is going to be like your kind of big introduction to the world and to the industry. And so I want to make sure that we are, that you feel comfortable with all of the shots and that you feel comfortable with like everything that we're doing. And yeah, just like let me know if you have any ideas of like anything that we could make things easier for you or any ideas that you have for the shots." And she kind of pitched like this opening sequence for the movie that was really cool. And yeah, it was just like a really, really neat experience because even like on 4400 also one of the writers kind of cornered me for not for my feature episode but for a different episode and kind of did a similar thing where he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna like bring up your disability right now, and like how do you feel about the way that this was written?" And those two experiences like really have made me feel so hopeful for the direction that the industry is going in. Because for Anna Kendrick to like take the time to sit down with me and like have that conversation on a very busy set day was it was so amazing. And I felt so supported and cared for. And that, yeah, it was just like really, it was a really, really cool experience. So
That's awesome. And what's this movie called for so that people can be watching for it?
it's called The Dating Game.
The Dating Game. All right, nice. Cool.
I don't know when it's coming out, but it's gonna be it's really intense. It's an intense movie, but Anna Kendrick is so good at telling stories that are important for women by women. She has such a clear vision for, what the movie is trying to say and bring light to. So I think it's going to be really impactful. And yeah, I'm really excited for people to see it.
Nice. And do you know where it's going to be able to be
I don't
watched?
know actually. I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah, no
The
worries. I
magic
know
of
this
movies.
industry is very it changes its mind a lot,
It
so,
does. It does. It's stressful, but we love it.
So I don't know how much you can say about this upcoming thing that you just booked, but like
Hmm.
what kind of project is it? What flavor
Yeah.
of art?
I don't know if I can really say that much, but
Okay.
it is a workshop for a new musical that I am very excited about. It's a short it's a
Okay.
tier 2 development for those in the house that know what that means. So,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know if I could say much else, but I'm very, very excited and I think the cast is going to be incredible. I don't know everyone who's cast yet, but I'm just so excited. It has been the last time I was on stage was the Fly More Than You Fall, the Willow character,
Oh my
was
gosh.
2019. That was the last time that I was on stage. So
Wow.
yeah, if you can believe that. So I'm very, very excited to really dig in and get back into the theater world a little bit. It's my home. It's what I love. So I'm excited.
That is so cool. And this is going to be happening like on a New York stage in some
Yes, it
way.
will be happening in New York. I don't know
Okay.
really any of the other details, to be honest.
Okay, no worries, no worries. I'm wondering because I'm like, if and when I can see any of this happening, like I'm very excited about it. Obviously, I'm in Chicago, so
But it is it's a very exciting project because it's, you know, it's women led, and I'm pretty sure the entire cast is women. So I'm very, very excited.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah. But that character is not actually a disabled character either. It's just the character is kind of unrelated to disability, which is, you know, it's fun. It's
Uh,
fun to play that.
so for those types of characters, like, do you think that you being disabled still impacts the way that you play those characters, or do you try and kind of push it aside?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, being disabled is kind of just always in the subconscious of my mind at all times. It affects the way that I move, it affects the way that I feel about, you know, my body and the way that I feel about my relationship with other people. So, even if it's not like a conscious decision to sort of, I guess, like really bring it to the forefront of what I'm doing, it's like it's seeped into every single decision that I'm making and every single like word that I say because it is just a part of who I am.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, and also yeah, like I said, like any type of person can be disabled, and so it's just showing, you know, I could also be living this timeline. I could be living this timeline, and it's all me everywhere you look. So
yeah. That's so cool. I love that. I love that perspective. So, just kind of one more little question to round us out.
mhm.
Do you have any advice for younger disabled performers, or not even necessarily younger, but just disabled performers that are starting out, or even for Little Autumn?
Oh, that's a really good question. My advice would be trust yourself. That's definitely, and I'm saying that because that's what I struggle with the most. And yeah, really trust yourself because in this industry, no one else is going to do that for you. You have to be the person to show up for yourself. And that applies to any actors, but especially for disabled actors, because I think so often, you know, you get a role and you feel like this imposter syndrome of like, why me? Why now? And you just have to trust that you deserve to be in the room like anybody else does. And once you have that, once you like deeply trust yourself, you can actually start to create art that you're proud of as an artist. And so I think that's probably the most important thing to remember, and I try to remind myself that too.
That's awesome. I love that. All right. Well, are there any like websites, socials, anything that you want to plug? Anything that people can find you at?
Sure, my Instagram is at it's autumn best, and I think that's really the only one I'm still keeping up with these days. I think also on Twitter it's autumn best if you want to find me there, and I do have a YouTube channel. I don't really post on it anymore. Thinking about maybe reviving it. I used to do a lot of music, but yeah, if you want to find me, it's youtube.com/autumn best. So those
Bring the
are my
ukuleles back.
yeah, I keep getting these comments of people being like, "It's been 2 years since you've uploaded on YouTube," and I'm like, "Oh my, how is that even possible? How has it been 2 years since I uploaded?" So I don't know, feeling a little bit guilty. Maybe I'll start bringing it back.
You're busy. You're fine. I feel like you have an
I'm
excuse.
busy, and I want to do music in the future. So I guess follow me on Instagram to see more of that. I guess and stay updated. So
Nice. Heck yeah. All right. Well, I feel like that about wraps up our episode. So I just want to thank everybody for tuning into Able Voices, and this does wrap up my stint as a guest host. So thank you so much for having me, for listening to me talk. I know I do a lot of talking, so glad you liked it. I hope.
well, you're so good at it.
Thank you. If you want to find me, my Instagram is Grace Everett. My website, graceeverett.org. I got a .org and not a .com because a .com was like $100 more expensive. That's entirely the reason.
Not worth.
No. But yeah, that's what I got. So thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, obviously tune back in for more episodes, but with another fantastic guest host.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much,
Cool.
Grace.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Able Voices is a production of the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education, led by me, Dr. Rhoda Bernard, the founding managing director. It is produced by Daniel Martinez del Campo. The intro music is by Kai Levin, and our closing song is by Sebastian Batista. Kai and Sebastian are students in the arts education programs at the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education. If you would like to learn more about our work, find us online at berkeley.edu/BIAAE or email us at BIAAE@berkeley, that's LEE.edu.